Amazing tale of the Horrell brothers. Have you ever wanted to be in a cool and famous family? Did you ever want to know how it feels like to be the Kardashians? Maybe run a big business together, have your own gig, and go viral on the internet? Or brutally murder a bunch of people and become a famous family of murderers? The third one sounds interesting, eh? This is what we will be talking about in this video. The Horrell brothers were a group of cowboys that carried out terrible crimes. Their earliest record to murder was during the year 1873. They murdered 5 policemen. They used guns and brute force to kill the poor men. They were drinking at a bar in Texas when one of the brothers simply lost his temper and targeted a policeman. Soon the two groups were at each other's throats, trying. The policemen were trying to stay alive and break out the fight, while the Horrell brothers couldn't care less and ended up killing 5 of the policemen. Since they were convicted criminals, they had to find a new place to live. They immediately set course to New Mexico. It wasn't long after they settled in their homes when another incident occurred. One of the Horrell brothers shot a lawman after a night of heavy drinking. Unfortunately for this Horrell, he was killed by a local Sioux. The fallen brother was Ben Horrell. The rest of the Horrell brothers discovered that Ben's killers were mostly Hispanics. So what do? They take revenge on the whole Hispanic community. They formed a grudge against the Hispanics. They made sure their violence and anger was felt by every Hispanic they came across. You could call this racism, but this is definitely on a different level. They practically waged war against a whole race of people. That is a pretty strong bond for a family, if you ask me. Now, the Horrell brothers had a ranch back home. That was where they started. They murdered their 2 workers who were Mexican Americans. Shortly after, they heard news of a wedding to be held in their town. When they heard who some of the attendees were, they decided to crash the wedding. They walked in unannounced and uninvited like it was their right to do so, and waged war against the Hispanics. 4 guests were murdered on that very wedding. Word quickly spread in the local Hispanic community. They were infuriated with the ongoing race war. It didn't take long for them to decide that they needed to take matters into their own hands. They planned to fight back. The next day, they armed themselves with torches, guns, and any weapon they can get their hands on. The Hispanics surrounded the Horrell's property, but the Horrell brothers were always ready. They successfully defended their property and escaped before the ranch got burned to the ground. Then they came into contact with a Texan gang who agreed to ride with them across the countryside. They slaughtered several Mexicans wherever they went. No Hispanic was safe from their race war. It actually required the military to force the Horrell brothers back to Texas. They were finally caught and the killings had stopped. The Texan gang was caught too, as they went back to Texas together. Their race war ultimately took the lives of at least 35 people. Now that story was racially motivated for sure. Would you go berserk on a whole race of people if just one of them did you wrong? Leave a comment below. Click on this next video to learn more about Wild West Outlaws.